over at facebook.com/Conduit News and the YouTube channel, Conduit News on YouTube. Click the subscribe button and the little bell to receive notifications. Welcome back to the program this morning. Congressman Rick Crawford back with us. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well, sir. It's, again, always great to have you on the program. I'd love to start, if you don't mind, just kind of talking about where we are right now with the corrupt, apparently corrupt higher-ups in the Department of Justice and FBI during the Obama administration. And, you know, we still have Andrew McCabe and others. They're going out. They're making these statements. They're trying to capitalize on what President Trump said about how he would listen to people, you know, foreign governments and that sort of thing. And I'm just thinking, when in the world are we going to get justice when these people who, you know, did what they did, they committed crimes against this country, in my opinion? What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, you know, you've pretty well summarized it there, and it's a good question. When are we going to see justice done? And yesterday I was accosted in the Capitol by a reporter and asked about the president's comments about receiving quote-unquote dirt from foreign nations, what he called the FBI. Well, how about this? How about a candidate that called the FBI beforehand and asked for assistance on their campaign? And there are people in the FBI and the DOJ that assisted willingly. I mean, so we got, you know, the media outrage over something like this is ridiculous. And that's how they escape scrutiny, quite frankly, is because the media carry the water for these bad actors in the FBI and the DOJ. And I would just want to clarify that the FBI and DOJ are they're good people. They've got bad leadership. There's some bad leadership. That cabal in Washington that's been calling the shots now for several years. We just had an open hearing in the Intelligence Committee, and there were two of the witnesses. You know, the majority party calls their witnesses, and then we get to call one. And they had two witnesses there, and one of them, neither one of them had read the Steele dossier, but both of them were there to critique it, and in a manner of speaking, and they acknowledged, well, they hadn't actually read it. And one of them had worked for both Mueller and Comey in his 24-year career in the FBI. So, you know, how in the world are you supposed to get objective material, objective testimony from a witness like that? And this is what we continue to see in Washington is, you know, these committee chairmen in various committees that have got memorandums of understanding between the committees to cooperate together to damage the president in any way possible. And I'm really kind of sick of it. I just think they ought to go ahead and impeach the president. Go ahead and do it. Put your cards on the table and see what happens. Because this backhanded way of doing it, that they're basically doing an impeachment inquiry right now through all of these committee hearings that they do in the intelligence and oversight government, in judiciary and financial services. You know, just go ahead and do it. You know, if you're that convinced, and then let the American people decide how they feel about it.
Do you think they're doing that to appease the radical, the far left movements of their party? Because, you know, Nancy
Absolutely.
is afraid of AOC.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. This is a dirty little secret that, you know, the Democrats, you know, in middle America don't want to acknowledge, and that is that AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib are not majority makers. Those seats were Democrat seats regardless of who ran. That wasn't going to change. There was no net effect to electing those three individuals with regard to the makeup of the Democrats in Congress. That wasn't going to have an impact because that was not a net change there. What this does is puts pressure on people like Daniel Lipinski in Illinois, Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania, Kurt Schrader in Oregon, Colin Peterson in Minnesota. Those are the majority makers. It's people like that who can win in marginal districts or even R-plus districts, and they're having to go home to their people and explain why their speaker has become a socialist. And the reason she's done it is because she's trying to get out in front of these clowns and show that she's the preeminent Democrat in America, and nobody's going to out Pelosi. So she's getting out in front of them to make sure that she's giving the appearance that she's actually driving this ship. What she's doing is she's driving this ship into an iceberg.
And I certainly hope so. I mean, I think the Republicans' chances of retaking the House in 2020 go up exponentially, especially if they impeach the president, which, I mean, do you think that they're eventually going to do that? I mean, I think that Nancy knows that that would be a net loss, though, because the American people don't support impeachment, according to the polls.
Well, this is why they're doing what they're doing, because she knows that she can't impeach, because that's a loser. So what they're going to do is harangue the administration with subpoena requests and do all the things that you would do in an impeachment without actually declaring an impeachment. So this is sort of a somewhat of a political Cold War, an impeachment Cold War, if you will. And they're doing all these little backdoor maneuvers to do what they would do in an impeachment proceeding, but just not call it an impeachment proceeding. This way they get away with doing it without actually doing it. So, I mean, I would say, you know, just have the courage of your conviction, do it, and let the American people decide, because I guarantee you that dog won't hunt.
Mm-hmm. We've been waiting on Inspector General Horowitz's report for a while. It was supposed to be out sometime this month, and because, according to reports, there's new information that's been given to the Inspector General, and now the report's going to be delayed. You have any idea what that new information is and when we can expect that report?
Well, I can tell you it has been reported that there are a number of findings that he conducted over the last 30 days, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 IG inspections, individuals within the FBI and the DOJ, and it's amazing what they found. Okay, so you had a guy running, basically an FBI employee running a service garage in the FBI parking garage where he was doing maintenance on FBI agents' cars, I guess, right? You had, one woman that was, I don't know if she was muling pot or what the deal was, but this was an FBI employee, DOJ employee. I don't know if she was an agent, but she was an employee of one of those two agencies. And they cover all this stuff up. There were 6 separate incidents, and it's these type of kind of low-level, not necessarily threatening national security, but certainly a gross breach of conduct and a gross misuse of taxpayer dollars. And yet they've covered that up. And so that's an indication of kind of what's going on there. That's in Washington, by the way. It's not as though we've got FBI agents in Jonesboro running some kind of scam or something like that, right? No, this is all coming out of Washington. So those 6 individuals, that came to light, but there's more, and there's so much more, and it's so much deeper than that, and so much more dangerous than, changing somebody's oil in the FBI garage, that this got to be turned over to the new investigator, the U.S. attorney from Connecticut, and this is a guy that's going to get to the bottom of it.
Yes.
And that's what's got him afraid. This has got people. You haven't heard a heck of a lot from Comey in the last couple of weeks. He's kept relatively quiet, and he had been getting out there on Twitter quite a bit, trying to make some noise. And then, McCabe is in the crosshairs. Obviously, you've got Peter Strzok and his paramour, Page, and, a laundry list of other bad actors in the FBI and the DOJ. If we don't clean that mess up and trace it back to how this whole thing was, the genesis of this, which is the Hillary campaign, the DNC, contracting with Coey Perkins law firm, contracting with Fusion GPS to hire Christopher Steele. And, oh, by the way, Nellie Orr was under contract with Fusion GPS. He just happened to be married to Bruce Orr, one of the top executives in the Department of Justice. And all this information they're collecting with an already discredited source on the front end. This guy, Christopher Steele, had been he'd been removed as an FBI informant for unreliable information. But he was good enough to go and conjure up this crazy story that allegedly took place in Russia involving Donald Trump. This was just a contrived, commissioned by Hillary Clinton, carried out by agents of the federal government to help her campaign. And then you've got the temerity to stand there and ask George Stephanopoulos to stand there and ask the president, would he look at information coming from a foreign source? give me a break.
What about the FISA judge or the judges? Do you think that they believe they've been lied to? And there was some accusation, I think, a couple weeks ago, Joe DeGeneva saying that the judge has already referred this to the higher-ups, saying that they believe they were lied to when it comes to, the FISA application.
Well, I believe they were lied to, and I believe that if they don't believe they were lied to, given the information that we know and that I've seen and I've had access to, then they need to be removed from the bench. And there's a whole lot of people that don't really understand the construct of the FISA court and how that works. But that has to be reformed, and it has to be reformed soon, because we can't have a repeat of this type of thing. And the reason that this was, you can't have the sort of, coffee shop relationship with these FISA judges. And there's a rotation with these judges. It's not as though they sit in this, skiff, in the basement of the Supreme Court and wait for people to come in and ask for warrants. There's a process by which these warrants are presented, and the request is made, and the information is reviewed. And it's kind of almost like a circuit court where you've got different judges in a rotation, different kinds of judges that have expertise in this area, and they do a rotation to hear these cases and requests for warrants. And if they don't have fulsome information, they're probably going to make bad choices. And so these people know it. People like Andrew McCabe, they know it. They know that they can go in there and manipulate these judges, which is why there needs to be two things that have to happen in these FISA courts, in my opinion. One of them is there has to be an adversarial agent in the room. And by that I mean some disinterested party advocating for constitutional due process, regardless of who the request is made on for the FISA warrant. Somebody on the other side needs to be present, not to say, no, you shouldn't issue that for this reason or that reason, but to make sure that he or she is hearing the argument and making sure that it's all done within the confines and the prescribed parameters of the Constitution. So that's number one. Number two, there needs to be a transcript. There needs to be a stenographer present, and that transcript needs to be made available. Should there be any irregularities that come to light, they can refer back to the transcript and say, here's what happened. And it can remain classified. I'm not suggesting that those transcripts ever see daylight, but they do need to memorialize those proceedings in a way that we can go back and reference what exactly was presented to the FISA judge. So then we can make a determination, was there an attempt to deceive the FISA judge? Without those reforms, it's going to continue to be difficult.
Yeah, and those are really good ideas, really good reforms. And I know Congressman Crawford, you're doing an excellent job representing the state of Arkansas, representing District 1 on this Intelligence Committee. I think somebody else who has represented the state of Arkansas very well by representing the president, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I just would love to get your comment on her exiting from the White House, and the president even urging her to come home and run for governor. But what do you think about what she's done on that national stage, representing our country, the president, and the state of Arkansas?
Well, I will tell you this, that she has raised the bar, and anybody that comes in behind her, I would not want to be that person, because she's done such a formidable job in engaging in hand-to-hand combat with a very hostile media establishment. And she, day in and day out, just the composure, the poise, the quick wit, all of those things that we've probably never seen to the degree that we've seen it with her. And she really kind of, I think, has set the standard for what any White House spokesperson would aspire to. And so that's going to be a loss for the Trump administration, but this is a naturally occurring phenomenon in that the burnout for that type of job, quite frankly, I'm surprised she stayed as long as she did, because of the 24/7, you're on call all the time. She's got small children at home. She's got a husband, and she's a family woman, and this was a major sacrifice on her part to be able to do it, and she did it very well. In fact, maybe better than anybody ever has.
I think you're right about that. Definitely a contender. Congressman Rick Crawford. It's always great to have you on, and I thank you for your candor and keeping us informed here back home. And just keep going. We got to get to the truth. I know you're pursuing it. I know it's tough with Adam Schiff, now the head of that committee, but we really appreciate it, sir. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All righty. Congressman Rick Crawford, everybody.